Good evening and welcome. I am Chitralekha Banerjee, your host for this knowledge discussion organized by the Public Relations Society of India, Kolkata chapter. PRSI is the National Association of PR Practitioners. The global pandemic has created upheaval in both our personal and professional lives. Business continuity has been a problem, and perhaps this is the time we need to revamp the meaning of branding. But is branding dead? Our today's webinar titled Branding is Dead, Long Live Branding, Revamping Branding for Covid-Kaal and Beyond. We'll delve deep into this as we have with us Mr. Harish Viju. He is a marketing practitioner and thinker who is ahead of the consumer thinking curve year on year. A brand thinker and practitioner operating out of Bengaluru, Harish Viju runs a unique boutique consulting outfit branded Harish Viju Consults Inc., a brand name that has a consulting presence across the markets of Hong Kong, Seattle, London, Istanbul, Dubai, and the Indian subcontinent. He has spent his career across the aggressive domains of FMCG, telecom, and consumer durables. Mr. Bijur is a public speaker who speaks to corporate audiences across the globe in the realm of motivation, people management issues, brands, marketing, and businesses at large. He has spoken to corporate audiences across the world for 15,812 hours till date. He teaches at the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad and Mohali, in addition to semesters at overseas business schools in the US and Europe. He has been teaching at the Indian School of Business for the past 19 years. Harish Viju has recently published a book titled Marketing Trends Smart Insights into the World of Indian Business, a serious book written in a style that is distinctly young and MTV-ish. He is currently involved in the second book on core branding. The book is titled Brand Irrationals, A Fundamental Journey into Brand Think. He has simultaneously been commissioned to write a book on customer service mechanisms at play in contemporary marketing context. Mr. Bijul is actively involved in research relating to the rural consumer behavior, rural retail networks, and trade mechanisms at play. The current research exercise is involved in spans a 6-year period covering 84,850 consumers across India. He has published papers extensively on the subject relating to strategic marketing, branding, consumer behavior, retail networks, rural marketing, marketing research, and trend analysis. He contributes regularly to business publications on branding, sales, distribution, and related topics. I can go on, but I know you are waiting to hear from him. So let me now welcome Mr. Bijul to our virtual platform. But before that, I request our chairman, PRSI Kolkata chapter, Mr. Shomujit Mahapatro, to formally welcome him on this virtual webinar today.
Thank you, Chitralekha, for nice introduction. I, on behalf of Public Relations Society of India, Kolkata chapter, cordially and heartily welcome Mr. Harish Vijur in our virtual platform. This is for the third time we got you in our platform, and we're extremely happy to have you here. A person with amazing track record of 15,812 hours. We just cannot think. And we hope that this record will be broken very shortly with 20,000 and 25,000 and 30,000 hours. So the topic, when I got from his end, I was a little bit shocked, and the shock continues. But the shock will not continue because Mr. Harish Bijur will prove it. Yes, the branding is dead. And with that, I formally welcome Mr. Harish Bijur into this show. So the floor is yours, Mr. Harish Bijur. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shamji. Thank you for that absolutely warm welcome. I must say that, I would have loved to be in Kolkata at this point of time, but the times are different and it's very difficult. And with no travel or not enough of safe travel, we are doing things virtually. I have a special affection for the PRSI Kolkata chapter for sure. I've been there twice before, and this is my third appearance. And this time, I'm not there in person. Again, our physical lives have changed. We are so virtual in everything that we do. So this has become a habit to be speaking from a distance. Yet, I miss Kolkata, and that's for sure. And of course, I miss the Shiraz biryani, which is still my favorite. Okay. And just to say that I've not been paid by Shiraz to plug them. Okay. It's a pleasure being here. And when I talk about virtual meetings like this, they become very different because, for me, sitting here in good old Bengaluru in my study and talking to you, I don't know who is where. I don't know who is sitting where and in what condition. I do a fair number of webinars, and I've done a fair number of them on Zoom. And on Zoom, you have those little windows which keep popping up. And I was recently doing a session, and there was a limit of 1,000 numbers on it. So I had literally that many windows of people coming up. So I played naughty there, and I just played naughty to perk up the audience. What I did is I let out a small AI tool, an artificial intelligence tool, onto the system, and I tried to see what are the conditions of the people and where are they when they're listening to my webinar. And God, I had numbers. I think I had numbers that 8% of people were lying on their bed and we could see a pillow behind. And we had numbers to say that 11% of the men were in banyans. And I won't go beyond that. But, this is what happens when the virtual conference is here. You think I can't see what you're doing out there, but don't be too sure. Not in the future, for sure. Today, I don't know where you are and what you're watching. However, this is going to be a chat, and I have made it a policy, in each one of my webinars, that, during Covid-Kaal, I call it Covid-Kaal, I ensure that I don't use a PowerPoint presentation at all. I keep saying power corrupts and PowerPoint corrupts absolutely. And, a PowerPoint presentation coming at you through a webinar, it's boring as hell. And therefore, I have devised a new system to say that I speak from my heart, but at the same time, I will be using a device called a razor prompt. A razor prompt. What is a razor prompt? A razor prompt is nothing but an ordinary razor which I have taken, and I married it to a 3M post-it pad, and I will be writing some titles which are going to come at you quite regularly. For instance, the title of this session is Branding is Dead. Long live branding. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that branding as a subject is going to change. Old branding, the way we know, cannot exist anymore. Old branding is dead because, my dear friends, we live in very difficult times. The world has not gone through, at least the world we have lived in, over all the years. We have never gone through such difficult times. Covid-Kaal is a difficult time. And Covid-Kaal is a time when everything around us has got redefined. And therefore, I think I want to start by talking about Covid-Kaal realities for a start. What are the realities that are staring at us in our faces during Covid-Kaal? And I'll talk about it first by quoting Charles Dickens from A Tale of Two Cities, where Dickens says, it's the beginning of the book, it says, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Charles Dickens, then. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Oh, Covid-Kaal, it was the best of times for nature, for the birds, for the bees, for the trees, for our lakes, for our roads, for our air quality, the best of times. And it was the worst of times for man trapped in his home. Fundamentally because we who were supposed to be free animals could not step out of our locked in reality. And that is the reality I want to talk to you about, my friends, that Covid-Kaal is a reality that has bitten us. COVID-19 is actually something which I call a pause moment in our lives. It is a comma moment in our lives. Thankfully, it's not a full stop moment. It's not a full stop moment. It's a comma moment. It is a pause moment. It is nature's call of a different kind. It is nature's call to say, go slow, my dear friends. Go green. Go clean. Go eco. Go real. And stop pushing the world. You've been pushing it unnecessarily with just one entity who you have in mind, which is I, me, and myself. So I think it is nature's call. It's a way of nature to say, hey, take a break, guys. But are we listening is a question which you and I need to answer. Now, today's reality, if you really look at today's reality, we live in a fear economy, my dear friends. We live in a fear economy versus the celebratory economy brands used to love in the good old days. The fear economy is one in which I fear to get out of my home. Take it from me, many of you worry when you leave the confines of your home. Take it from me, wherever you go, you have at the back of your head the fear factor of COVID around. And that affects the economy. The economy is actually dumbed down in terms of size. Brands have gone out of the window. Brands have gone through the roller coaster of consumption ups and downs. There are some brands like biscuits which have shot through because the bunkering effect of homes has helped them. But there are some brands like soft drinks which have been taken to the cleaners. So if you look at it, we live in the fear economy as opposed to the celebratory economy. So I was thinking, and I wanted to coin a word. So in April, when we began the lockdown, the one thing that struck me was that in a lot of our lives, when we were growing up, there were elders, and the elders would tell us, young man, young woman, go out and conquer the world. And one line that used to come out was, the world is your oyster. The world is your oyster. Actually, I turned it turtle because COVID turned it turtle. And I today say that the world is not your oyster. The oyster is your world, my dear friends. The oyster is your world. The world is not your oyster. You cannot go out into the world. Everything needs to come into your home. And your home is the oyster. And the oyster is your world. Everything that you and I use today needs to come into the home. Because the world is not your oyster. All dressed up and nowhere to go. I work with any number of companies. I work with cosmetics companies in deep trouble. Lipstick companies, deep trouble. Lipstick is out. Who can see lipstick under the mask most of the time? Lot of cosmetics out of the window. There is a serious issue. We are all getting into a kind of an inward looking life as opposed to the outward looking life, which used to be the norm in the old days. Will this define everything that we do in the future? No, because things are going to improve. COVID is going to lift. The vaccine is going to be here, and we're going to become more free. But is this the time for us to think? And is the world of branding going through an Amrit Manthan of its own kinds? Is the world of branding going to need redefinition? Is what I'm going to be talking to you about. Honey, we shrunk the economy. This is the reality. If I was to make a new movie tomorrow, I would say, honey, we shrunk the economy. We've actually shrunk the economy, my dear friends. How have we shrunk the economy? Fundamentally, a lot of things have happened. Salaries are down. Incomes are down. If you really look at it, salaries are down by about 30% at times. And there are several kinds of jobs today. There are paid salary jobs. There have been no increment jobs. There have been decrement jobs, 30% less. There are something called payless jobs. You're on the records of the company, but you will not get a pay till COVID is over. Take it from me. A lot of you people will emote with me when I'm telling you these things because these numbers come out from our research exercise across corporate India, where this is the reality. Very few industries are insulated. In this kind of a situation, the incomes are down. We did a massive study across 18,000 plus households in the month of April, May, June, and July, an e-interview. And we came out with responses which said that salaries are down in the country by 26% on average. 26% on average. My dear friends, if your salary is not down by 26%, be happy. If you got an increment this year, be super happy. Average is 26%. And if salaries are down, the good news, my dear friends, is that expenditures are also down. Expenditures are down by 41%. Why? All dressed up, nowhere to go. No travel to go to a wedding. No commute. No Uber and Ola. No petrol in your car. No eating out as often as one used to. Hey, listen, guys. Expenditures down by 41%. Salaries down by 26%. You're really talking about the net. There is a difference, which means that expenditures are less as well. But what does this do? Honey, this shrinks the economy. If expenditures are less than by 26%, the economy also shrinks by 26%. We have a shrinkage of 29.3%. That's what we're talking about. But is this going to remain or not? We'll take a look at it. We're talking about 23.9% as a shrinkage. Vocal for local brings down values. And we're talking about vocal for local, which means to say that we'll buy only local things, which means that branded products are going to be in trouble, which means to say that a lot of multinational products may be in trouble in the future. Already Chinese brands are in trouble. But if you really look at it, a lot of the value of the economy has gone down. And which simply means to say that if the value of the economy was 100 at one point of time, it's likely that it's going to be about 76 or 77 over the next couple of years. And that is a serious issue. What must brands do in this environment? We'll talk about it. Consumers are reducing consumption of items. You're looking at your toothbrush, and I have research on this, and people are saying, oh, I use so much of toothbrush paste on it. If I reduce it by half, my toothpaste will extend its life for one more month. And guess what? Reduction in consumption of items is a reality in Indian homes. Essentially, postponement of purchase is also yet another habit. If you wanted to replace your refrigerator last month, you say, oh, it has a Kelvinator, heart, it will go on for another 2 years. Let me replace it 2 years later. Lack of spending. And I think this is hitting the market quite badly. Savings is the new income. Savings is the new income. At times, the only income for some. There are lots of homes where there's no income, which means that whatever you save is new income. A rupee saved is a rupee earned coming true to roost. Postponing purchases, reduction of purchases, recession in our lives is deep. So the fear economy is where we live in. I've just painted a background of the economy for you. And now I must go and talk to you about what is a brand. And I think all of you know what a brand is. You saw the AV right in the beginning, the power of brands, the power of brand Coca-Cola, the power of advertising, the power of pharma brands, the power of manufacturer brands, the power of organization brands. I think, typically, what is a brand? When people ask me, I tell them the brand is a thought. The brand is a thought that lives in a person's mind. Full stop. Nothing more, nothing less. The brand is a thought that lives in a person's mind. And this brand could be a Colgate, could be a Red Bull, could be 20 other brands that you're talking about. The brand is a thought that lives in a person's head. And as many people, there are that many thoughts of the same brand. There's one brand called Coca-Cola, but there are 1.3 billion people in this country. Every one of them has a different thought of Coca-Cola. And that is the complexity of brands and branding. If you really look at the thought of brands in our minds most of the time, sometimes I ask, has branding gone too far most of the time? Has branding hijacked our lives so much that, we are not caring for some of the nuances that consumers are looking for? And COVID-19 has underlined that. It has said that consumers must be taken care of. And how do we take care of consumers? We'll talk a little bit. Are there new realities ahead of us during Covid-Kaal? Must brand managers pull up their socks and do things differently? Is the old theory of branding gone out of the window? I think there is a case building towards it. What must branding respect in the future? That is yet another answer which you and I have to give. So what I've done is I've put together about 5 things out of a total of 41 items that I have out of my research on new branding. Those of you interested can always, go to my Twitter link at various points of time and pick up some of the thoughts. But I'm going to present only about 5 of them because that's how much time I have out of the 41 thoughts that I've packaged for new branding, because old branding is dead. There's something called new branding. Let me talk about some of these. I'll just talk about the new realities and the new pulls in our life. One of the first things that is affecting our lives, my dear friends, is digitalism. Digitalism is the new religion. Every 100 years, we have a new religion emerging in our lives. We have had communism. We have had fascism. We have had capitalism and 21 other isms. The latest ism is digitalism. Digitalism is the new way that you and I are looking at. And digitalism is going to change branding in a different manner. What Osama bin Laden, you remember that name? What Osama bin Laden did to the security industry in terms of nudge, in terms of push, the entire security industry of the world fell into place overnight because everybody wanted to be secure. What Osama bin Laden did to the security industry, Corona bin Laden, if I may call it that, has actually done to the digital industry as a nudge. The digital industry has been pushed. a lot of us were there who would say, we will not touch digital stuff. I am happy physically. No, my dear friends, the physical is over. I think everything in life is getting digital now. Therefore, one of the things branding needs to look at is the digital perspective in every piece of branding, the machine perspective in every piece of branding. Look at yourselves, my dear friends. All of you are on WhatsApp, which means that you're digital animals. You can't live without WhatsApp. There is WhatsAppism in your life. You have to pick up your phone and see if somebody has WhatsApped you. Even now, you're doing it. Even now, you're doing it as you're watching me talk. How do you make friends? You make friends on Tinder. Tinder? What's Tinder? I'm sure none of you know what Tinder is. Right swipe, left swipe, super like. None of you know what Tinder is. Tinder. You make friends on Tinder. If I ask you how many Facebook friends you have, many of you will say 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. Maybe you can send me on a chat and tell me how many Facebook friends each one of you has. It would be interesting for me to see. It's researching even as I talk. If you look at it, how do you see a tiger really well? I went to Tadoba Andhari National Park and spent 3 nights there, did 6 safaris to spot a tiger. Did not see a tiger. On the last day, in the last 20 minutes, we saw one tiger and we were very, very happy for 2 minutes. Came back home to Bengaluru, sat down in front of a television set, switched it on, watched a 23-minute documentary on the tigers at Andhari National Park, made by Mr. Nallamuthu, who spent 2 years possibly making that series together. But in 23 minutes, we saw so many tigers that we felt very happy. Hey guys, physical, digital, physical, digital, the war is always going on. Friends in digital, tigers on digital, buying everything online on digital. And I have data which says that, online life is really going berserk now. EdTech, every Byju's and everybody who's on EdTech, medical tech, every MFine and everybody on medical tech. Blood tests are being done at home. Everything is hey guys, digitalism. Entertainment on OTT, Alt Balaji, big hit. Netflix. If you really look at it, every bit of Amazon, everything is happening. The future, my dear friends, in brand companies, there are going to be 3 types of employees. One is going to be a permanent employee. The second is going to be a gig employee who will come off and on and go. And the third is called the machine employee. And guess what, my dear friends? In terms of quantum move, back-end work that goes on in organizations, 41% of all back-end work in organizations is done by the machine employee. Which simply means to say, machines are going to become much more important in our lives after Covid-Kaal. Anyway, we've gotten digital. We have gotten into digitalism. Machines are replacing a lot of people. Human resource manager in organizations could become a machine resource manager tomorrow, managing machines. I don't know. Digital branding, of course, is different from physical branding. So we'll talk a little bit about it. It's all about the sensor. It's all about machines. It's all about machines doing tasks much better than human beings do the same tasks. Rude, cruel, crude, in the face, but real. Jobs getting lost. Machines are going to keep gobbling jobs more and more. In this kind of an environment, it simply means to say that the brand reality of the world is changing. You and I have to embrace the digital. We have to embrace the digital and be with digital, which means to say, whatever way age you and I are, we must never say no to the digital. If you look at it, crazy things are happening in the world. Right now, even as we are speaking, 3 days ago, there's something called the 15-minute city. The 15-minute city has become a reality. What is the 15-minute city? The 15-minute city happens in Paris, and some of you have read about it. Mayor Anne Hidalgo of Paris has decided that during the lockdown, let's use our bandwidth and mind weight to really create a green, eco-friendly, cycle-friendly Paris. Which simply means to say that she wants the entire Paris to be divided into grids where no human being needs to either walk more than 15 minutes or cycle more than 15 minutes to get any of their needs. Which means to say, you should be able to buy your groceries within a 15-minute cycle or a walk. You must be able to buy your petrol within that. You must be able to educate yourself within that. You must be able to entertain yourself within that, which seems to say that the 15-minute city is a reality. Of course, if I come to Kolkata or if I look at Bengaluru, we are a 4-minute city. You just step out and we have everything. But despite that, we want to go to business district to work, government district to get government work done, and we want to go to the shopping district to get shopping done. But over a period of time, I think the 15-minute city is becoming a reality. And this reality is actually going to be about green, eco-friendly, zero pollute, and living a cleaner life, because COVID-19 demands, or at least has planted thoughts in administrators' heads to say that we want a cleaner living in a cleaner life. The C2C business is already here in our lives, my dear friends. Brands are B2C. There is a company selling a brand to a consumer. That's B2C. There's a company selling a brand to another company. That's B2B. But now there is an individual, Mrs. Kalra, living in 2C diamond apartments, Garya Hut, selling homemade cakes, and the entire apartment complex is buying from her. Not only her apartment complexes, but people are sending Swiggy to her to pick up things. People that tomorrow are going to be actually dunzoing things from each of these places. What's the meaning of it, my dear friends? B2B was old, B2C is also going old, C2C is actually eating into a lot of B2C, which means to say home efforts of every kind is actually going to create big hangama in the future. The WhatsApp business. Reliance Jio is going to come up with Jio platforms, and the WhatsApp business, the Facebook business is all going to get monetized in the future, and brands are going to get intermediated by local consumers themselves. A lot of people are going to say, hey, I don't want the brand backed by the company, but my cupcakes that Mrs. Kalra makes is brilliant, and forget cupcakes from a branded company which is sending it to me from somewhere. If you look at it, my dear friends, extremely important to look at this model deeply. And we have to understand that all businesses have to disrupt now. We have to disrupt the now. And in branding, you have to disrupt the now. There is something called the Brahma, the Vishnu, and the Maheshwara cycle, which I write about mostly. What do I mean? Branding is about creating a brand, which is the Brahma role. Branding is about preserving the brand, keeping it going, which is the Vishnu role. And branding is also about the Maheshwara role, which is about killing the brand. Just killing the brand in totality. Now, which means to say that a brand manager must do all three things. And brand managers must wake up and say that I've played the role of Brahma, I've played the role of Vishnu. It's time for me to destroy my brand, to recreate, to be more efficient in the market, because B to C brands are going to face competition from C to C brands. Quite likely that they're going to be, localized drinks which may come up. There could be Mrs. Khanna in yet another apartment who's putting together a lovely soft drink which is very, very unique, which is a rose-based soft drink which she's making. And who knows how popular that can get. And when Mrs. Khanna's soft drink sells, it means that every Coca-Cola and every Pepsi does not sell. So it's a question of saying local brands from the C2C perspective are going to grow in their own way. Disruption is important. Disruption in life is important. Disruption in business is important. You must destroy the old to create the new. And brand organizations must disrupt themselves as well. And that's important for them. My area of specialty is disruption. And I get into a company and I disrupt the company, whether it be a brand organization, whether it be a manufacturing organization, whether it be an agriculture organization, a pesticide company, or a weedicide company, or a company which makes, very specific urinal cubes. What do I do when I enter into these companies? I just get in there and I say, it's time to disrupt, my dear friends, because COVID has redefined our new realities. So I am called a COVID disruptionist now, which simply means to say COVID has disrupted our lives. We have to disrupt our businesses. If we don't disrupt our businesses tomorrow are not going to be as hunky-dory as they were yesterday. There are three types of disruption that I look at. One is called disruption by design, by volition. I get into a company and disrupt the entire structure, disrupt the products, disrupt the services, create new ways of doing things, and take it to the market. That's by volition. The second form of disruption is disruption by government action. And I think many of you do know that, I think it was 1996. I think that was the time when we had a big disruption by government where Modi ji had announced demonetization on November 8th, I think 1996. And on that day, all of a sudden, all old notes of 500 and 1,000 had gone out of the market. It was a terrific way of cleaning out black money. And what happened is it disrupted people's lives thoroughly. That disruption is called disruption by government action. The third kind of disruption is actually disruption by act of God. An act of God is COVID to an extent. I would call it act of devil, that's for sure. But the point is, an act of God is COVID-19, and therefore we need to be prepared. Today, you don't have a choice to disrupt by own volition. Yeah, some companies still want to disrupt, and we work with them on that. Disruption by own volition. If you didn't do it, disruption by government action. If you didn't do it, disruption by the super god or the devil who says that I'm going to disrupt your act. Our lives, my dear friends, are disrupted. That is something you and I cannot forget. And we need to reinvent. We need to rise above the ashes. We need to step out and say that I'm going to change and I'm going to do different things as we're coming. COVID has taught us a better way to brand today, because, and this is something that I'm researching and I work with. I keep telling people, typically if I build a pyramid like this, if there is a pyramid, there are two categories of brands which we use. Any brand that you use has got two avatars, any category that you use. Supposing you're using detergents, at the bottom of the pyramid, you have needs and wants detergents. It could be a Nirma, which is it caters to a need and a particular want, and it comes at a particular price. And in the same category of detergents, you have something called the desires and aspirations, which is at the top of the pyramid. The needs and wants category could cost you 30 rupees for a packet. The desires and aspirations could cost you 120 rupees per packet of the same kilogram weight. Now, my dear friends, detergent is detergent. But there are two kinds of detergent. There is common man's detergent, which is needs and wants oriented. Then there is a rich man's detergent, which is desires and aspirations oriented. There's a lot of hollow appeal built in the desires and aspirations category. My dear friends, COVID-19 and new marketing mantras of the future will have to turtle this entire pyramid. The pyramid needs to be destroyed. A detergent is a detergent. All detergents are needs and wants detergents. If there are any detergents which are desires and aspirations detergents, they're hollow and they need to be repositioned as needs and wants detergents in the future. So if you really ask me, it's a question of saying, the aspirational categories are going to get redefined in our country. Definitely in our country, because values are down, my dear friends. And new branding is not about being exclusive. The brand is a premium, is one definition of a brand. But new branding is, the brand is not a premium. Premium is exclusive. The brand is an exclusivity. Brands are only for a few people. Handbags, which cost 1,75,000 rupees, brown in color with logos on it and shiny buckles on it, costing 1,75,000. Today will compete with bags which cost 2,000 rupees. And guess what? A bag is a bag is a bag. And COVID-19 is redefining several value propositions in the world ahead. New branding is not about being exclusive, it's about being inclusive. It's about this new word, and that new word is called inclusiveness. Everything getting inclusive. Inclusive branding, not exclusive branding. Branding was exclusive in the old days. New post-Covid-Kaal will need to build inclusiveness in the branding format. I'll talk a little bit more about it as we go. But if you look at it, sublime to the ridiculous. In most of the common man's category, we have sublime stories. A detergent which washes your clothes whitest. That's needs and wants oriented. A detergent which, when you're washing, you will be dreaming about your first love, and a small bubble will burst on your head, and you will see your first love floating around. Yeah, that's desires and aspirations to an extent. I've ridiculed it a bit. That's sublime to the ridiculous. Going from the sublime to the ridiculous, not a great thing to do in Covid-Kaal reality. I think reality bites, and it's about being inclusive. It's about, for more reasons than one, we need to be inclusive. All brands have got three components to them. One is a solid component. The second is a liquid component. The third is a gas component. The solid is the functionality, the reality of the product. But no product can sell only on its reality. You cannot take a steel bar and just say, oh, it's a strong bar. Yeah, that is solid. You have to add a little more to it. You have to put a chapa on it, you have to put a TMT, and you have to build a little story as to what all processes it goes through. That's the liquid. And then after that, you have to get in a film star, with a shirtless film star behind an auto rickshaw, holding that bar and trying to break it, but he can't break it. Now that is the gas portion of it. So all brands have solid, liquid, and gas. But in Covid-Kaal, all brands need to audit. All brands need to ask the question, how much solid, how much liquid, and how much gas does your brand have? And how should I rejig these components? And this is the kind of work that I typically do. The cosmetics category is rife with it. The cosmetics category is going through a most terrible time at this point of time. There are some functional cosmetics like the under eye wrinkle remover doing exceedingly well because wrinkles are reality and they need to be removed. Lipsticks doing badly, rouge doing badly, foundation doing badly. God, what am I talking about? So there is a serious issue. So if you look at it, reconsider the brand solid, the brand liquid, and the brand gas, and reconsider this as a marketer. This is extremely important for you to reconsider, because if you reconsider, I think you will do well and go forward. As consumers are really reconsidering all these things, consumers are suddenly asking, is this brand giving me a bit of bullshit? Is this brand talking a little bit of nonsense? Is there too much of gas in this communication as opposed to the solid and the liquid? Well, when consumers look at it, consumers discard brands straight away. Integrity needs to come back into branding in a big way. The small little lies that brands have told in the past, brands need to atone for. I keep saying the brand is a lie. A brand is a bundle of lies. Small little sticks of lies tied together to make a brand. If you have too many of these lies in the brand, it becomes incredible. If you have too few, it becomes boring. The brand is a lie with optimally sized sticks of lies tied together. I think COVID time you have to untie it and remove some of those lies and bring in a little more integrity in the communication pattern that brands have to come. What will brands do for you? We've heard all kinds of stories in brands, right? The toothpaste with oxygen in it. Oh God, this is a story which used to be there. A company launched a toothpaste with oxygen, and there was a guy, there was a girl, and this is their advertising execution. The two of them was dating, a dating situation with a round table in front of them, boy sitting here, girl sitting here, boy looking into the girl's eye, girl looking into the boy's eye, lot of romance, romanticism, and the girl, there's a candle in the middle of the table, and the girl opens her mouth to talk, and the candle goes boom. You know why? Because that morning the girl brushed her teeth with toothpaste which had oxygen in it. Please go buy that toothpaste. Oh God. In rural areas, people were really trying to do that. They were trying to brush their teeth and they were trying to go in front of a flame and check if there was really oxygen in it. I think, ridiculous statements such as these will not work in the future. Brand reality, how much of solid, how much of liquid, how much of gas, I think that analysis needs to come into every brand. Whether you're a corporate brand, and I do a fair bit of work in corporate space on brands, trying to bring credibility and credibility back in them. Whether you are a product brand, whether you are a Jabakusum, whether you are a Boroline, or whether you are an Imami, a service brand, whether you're an Uber, whether you're an Ola, or whether you are any other service, a bank, every one of us needs to check how much of truth has been poured into the proposition that you and I make. My dear friends, I'm coming close to the end of my presentation in a little while. Wake up and smell the cyanide. I call it cyanide because if we don't smell it, we're going to get poisoned. Brands are about inclusiveness. I just said that. I have an analogy that we have to get very inclusive. I call it the dengue mosquito analogy. Some time ago, we used to have the dengue mosquito biting us, and we had dengue as the biggest disease around. It's still around. And I used to say that the dengue mosquito, I live in a gated enclave, a nice gated enclave. There are big gates in front. Just outside my gated enclave, there is a small slum. In the slum live people in terrible conditions. The dengue mosquito breeds in that slum, and the dengue mosquito goes and bites the people of that slum, and they get dengue. And the dengue mosquito does not know that it must not cross the gated enclave boundaries, and they'll fly in and they'll bite people within the gated enclave as well. And the dengue happens within the gated enclave as well. What is inclusiveness? Hey guys, if you're living in a gated enclave, you cannot live like an oyster in a shell. You have to look after your surroundings. And this is called selfish inclusiveness. Maybe even selfish inclusiveness. This is something we have to look at, and this is something we have to constantly take care of and ensure that we take care of it with a great degree of care and robustness. Well, I'm going to come to yet another aspect, which is the second last piece that I want to talk about, which is the digibody. This digibody that I talk about is something like, all of us are digital animals. But the idea simply is that at the end of the day, many of us don't know where our body ends and where the digital begins. Half the time when you wake up first thing in the morning, you reach out to your phone, open your WhatsApp, and you're into the digital life. Many of us don't know where our body ends and where the digital begins, where the digital ends and our body begins. And that's the reality. Privacy goes for a sixth here. And brands are going to look at privacy in a very, very careful manner. I know what you did last summer, by the way. I know what you did yesterday, by the way, because you've all gone digital. And that's the downside of digital. The moment we get more and more embraced by the digital, we're going to lose a lot of it. A lot of privacy. The digi body of yours, think about yourself. I mean, your life is a public book. If only I could get access into Facebook, Twitter, everything else, I might really know who you are. The digibody ahead is something you have to keep a keen eye in brand perspective for the future. If you really look at it, I think, data is the new Java Kusum. I say Java Kusum because it's my favorite oil. And data is the new oil. And this oil is to be managed and taken care of with a great degree of care. Well, my dear friends, with that, I am going to come to the end of my presentation, where I'd like to say that in sum, it's a tough year. 2020 is a tough year. A year where nifty thinking is must in the realm of brands and its consumers. You must think niftily as a consumer, and I must, as a brand person, think niftily as a brand person. There are three kinds of people in the world. I say there's one kind of a person, and you heard this before, who looks at a glass and says the glass is half full. This is the guy who's said to be a positive guy. The glass is half full, sir. And the interviewer says, wow, you're a positive guy. The second kind of a guy is the guy who says, sir, that glass is half empty. Oh, you're a negative guy. These two guys have gone out of fashion, my dear friends. That was so 2019. Gone out of fashion. The new guy, the nifty guy, is the one who looks at a glass like this and says, sir, this glass is half filled with water and half filled with air. And I will make the best of the half filled with air, as I will make the best of the half filled with water. So if you really look at it, 2020 is a write-off here, my dear friends. Half the time I keep saying, maybe 2020 must be written off. Don't bother about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the loss of incomes, loss of so much in our lives. Fortunately for us, we have our life. 2020 is a write-off year. Write the year off. Maybe it is that break year which you and I never had the luxury to take when we were young. This is the break year. Let's have the luxury. In perspective, let's not worry. It's just 1 year. My dear friends, it's just 1 year, and hopefully it's coming to a close. Don't worry, because when I look at it in numbers terms, and I'm a very numbers oriented person, in life, what is 1 year? 1 year divided by a life of 75 years plus, let's say, comes to only 1.3% of your life, which means that if you have lost 2020, you lost only 1.3% of your life. Secondly, in working life, if you're a working person and you work for about 35 years and you lost 1 year out of those 35 years, what does it mean? Not much. You lost only 2.8% of your work life. Well, you lost 1.3% of your life. You lost 2.8% of your work life. But the beauty of it is, we have not stepped out too much into the pollution that is out there. Our lives are looking cleaner. We are hopefully eating healthier. Hopefully, we shall gain 5 more years just to make up for this loss of 1 year. In percentage times, it's small. Ladies, gentlemen, it's been my pleasure being here. And I would like to say that I will take questions in a while. But if I'm unable to answer your questions, you're always welcome to mail me at harishbijur@hotmail.com, or you can get on to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. And if you do say that you were at this PRSI event, I promise to reply to you within 24 hours. Thank you.
I have no words. Whenever you come, wherever you go, you mesmerize people. Your content, your thought process is always unique. You never use a single word what we have heard earlier, and that is the brand Harish Biju.
Thank you.
And we are really indebted that your inputs have enriched the entire student fraternity who are aspiring to be communication professional, brand professional in their future. And our statistics, what we'll be sharing with you in a couple of minutes after the show, that will give you an indication that during the show, thousands of people, they watched coolly. And that is the beauty of this session, that you are in a studio. But you told 2020 is a tough year, 2020 is a written off year, 2020 a year where 2.8% working life is compromised and 1.3% of our human life compromised. And you advise us to take a break and to consolidate your position like a cricket pitch when there's a fast bowling of bowlers like the Andy Roberts or Malcolm Marshall. So one has to take card properly and to face the ball. So that is the thing we are doing in 2020 in the tough year. And talk of Harish Bijur has given us a new dimension of life, because you told your life is data, and that is Java Kishum. And this Java Kushum brand, we are very familiar in Bengal and Kolkata, and that is the brand name you have told us. And you told manage the data with care. You have told so many things, and if I repeat all these things, it will take another 41 minutes. You delivered it here. So I will not waste furthermore to explain your speech. Everybody has understood very well, and they have taken it into their hearts, and they will deliver it internally, and they will find a good answer to their life. And with that, I will come with a couple of questions. Hopefully, you told that if I am not able to answer, but I think your Bible is able to beat even the machine language. That is Harish Biju. So with the first question which came in the Facebook, uh, it came as how COVID has changed the brands in their all over worthiness. One gentleman, Nahid, in Facebook asked this question.
Sorry, I didn't get that question very well. How COVID has
How
changed
COVID has changed
the
the brands
worthiness?
in their all
Okay,
over worthiness.
okay. See, brand value as such is going to get redefined very, very shortly, Nahid. What's going to happen is people are going to suddenly rediscover that many brand volumes are not what they were before. Secondly, a lot of people are going to discover that much of the passion people used to show for brands in the pre COVID era for that particular brand, they're not showing anymore. Therefore, brand valuation is going to get affected a wee bit. And therefore, there are going to be categories. There are going to be some categories which I call COVID ostracism categories. COVID ostracism categories are, for instance, ice cream. Ice cream industry went for a toss with COVID because people started saying COVID is a cold. It is a virus. It lives in a cold chain as well. These were myths in people's minds. And then they said ice cream is cold, and I don't want to eat any ice cream that comes out of the cold chain. And there was paranoia in people's minds. And that is ostracism. There is newspaper ostracism in the country. People said newspapers are handled by a lot of people, and apartment complexes were not letting in newspapers to come in there. The valuations of these newspapers themselves will go down. The advertising ability of the newspapers, the weight of advertising has gone down. So revival is something each of these brands need to plan to get back. And in fact, I'm working in both these industries, in the newspaper industry and the ice cream industry, trying to help them how to come out of it. There are many other COVID ostracism industries. And this is, the air conditioning industry is in big trouble. Again, I'm working with an aircon major in this country who says that air conditioning is in trouble because people are saying air conditioned spaces we must never get into. So what happens to all the industrial spaces, all the malls and all the cinema theaters? No air conditioning. Is there going to be new architecture coming in the future? So this is going to come in. The valuation of a lot of categories are going to get redefined. So essentially, I advise a fair number. I work with a lot of PE players in terms of buying out brands and selling brands. Even here, I bring in this new valuation in. I do a complete consumer due diligence, which is post-COVID reality consumer due diligence, wherein I check. Don't go by the history pre-COVID. Go by post-COVID reality. Thanks, Nahid, for that question.
And our next question, I take a cue from your question. You told about government action of disruption. So PM's campaign, that it's a well-coined campaign, that is go local, a disruption by government action. Your take on it.
Well, I have a different take on go local, whether we should go too local or we should not. If we go local, it is a long 10-year program. You cannot go local overnight. Because let's say, there is a Chinese phone and you have to replace the Chinese phone with an Indian phone. That Indian phone, by and far, does not exist there today. I might want to buy a Korean phone made in India. That's also fine. But if I want to buy an Indian phone made in India, it's going to take 10 years for these things to happen. But what happens is, most of the time, the value that the price you're willing to pay for these propositions go out of the window. You pay less and less and less. For an Apple, you're willing to pay an 85,000 rupees. That comes from United States of America, own brand, made in China. Yeah. A Samsung, you might be able to pay maybe about 65,000 rupees. You're willing to pay. And then you keep going down the pecking order to Xiaomi, and then you go to Carbon, and then you go down. Which is the true blue Indian Desi brand of mobile phone, which is ready to take off? We don't have these ready as yet. What are the options that we have for these replacements? What is the passion level in these new programs that we are thinking of? So until we get those things in place, I think it's a 10-year program. And in these 10 years, a lot will change. So, but that 10-year program must be a dedicated program behind which we'll go. Otherwise, it will not work. Yeah.
You are talking about machines, HR manager, even machine HR manager. So, will it be interpreted in the form that there will be more job cuts?
Oh, yes, job losses are a reality which you and I have to accept because the human jobs which used to exist in the past are getting redefined. A lot of jobs are going out of the window, and a lot of companies, by the way, are taking COVID 19 as an excuse point, inverted commas, excuse point to rejig their HR profiles and strategies. A lot of companies which were unable to say goodbye to a lot of people are now going to use COVID 19 as an excuse to say goodbye to these people. And when people go, machines come in. And when machines come in, machines replace people work very, very fast. Therefore, people have to find newer competencies, new ways, and new things to do. Young people, what do I advise young people? I tell people you should not have one competency, you must have two competencies. And these are not necessarily cross competencies. You must have two competencies because you should be able to do either one of these two jobs. You might want to be a DJ. This is the wrong time to be a DJ because the clubs and the pubs are all closed. But you might want to be a DJ, and in addition, you might want to be a specialist in embedded systems. So, in embedded systems is going to be one profession, DJing is another profession, and maybe two professions are important to insulate yourself. Jobs are going to be in question.
Thank you, Mr. Harish Bijur. We have another question. Brand, communication, public relation, advertising. If we now take AR, VR, ML, AI, cognitive intelligence, and other things, how it is going to impact the whole branding scenario and how the integration process will take place in near future.
Okay. See, in branding, I already work with mechanization. I work with machine branding altogether. Uh, Let me put it this way. We do something which is called BPO for branding or a KPO for branding. So I've got 200 people at the back end, possibly sitting in Whitefield at this point of time. And these 200 people are brand managers for companies across the world. Why? Because there is a small company in the Netherlands, in Utrecht, and that small company cannot afford to hire a brand manager for themselves because brand management is a skill, and that skill is a specialized skill. Brand managers cannot be made available everywhere. So we've got 200 of them in front of a computer, and each one of them handles branding for about 8 companies. So 1600 companies, branding is done in Whitefield in Bengaluru through a KPO which we have in place. Now, that is now getting replaced by a layer to say there are some basic brand jobs which need to be done as well. These basic brand jobs don't need human beings. They just need a machine running data, churning data, taking out and highlighting data, and feeding that data back to the companies. Now, that means that the job out of 200 people, we are able to save the job of 23 people. That is 23 people who are doing that job, not necessary anymore. A machine is going to do it. Guys, machines slowly eat into people's jobs because machines have a habit to say sensors, let's say sensors. Small little sensors are able to sense every movement. Movement sensors are there. There are oral sensors, sound sensors, smell sensors, and there are sensors which can scan a document and actually work on that document. It's the sensor silly. Sensors are able to work 24 hours a day. Sensors don't have to go back home. Ouch. Sensors don't have a husband or a wife or a mother or a father. Ouch. I'm talking a very cruel language, my dear friends, but I speak from the heart. And I don't believe in talking mollycoddle stuff. Say, oh, all will be well, everything is fine. That's all nonsense. I think we need to be real. In the end, it's the sensor silly. It's the machine. And machines are going to replace a lot of things that you and I have taken for granted that human beings will do. I mean, gone are the days when receptions will be manned by receptionists. Gone are the days. Receptions will be manned by a sensor, and it's a machine. You just go there and you just show your hand and you show your ID, and it records who you are, it matches it and says that, yeah, we know you have an appointment with Mr. Shomijit, who's sitting in the seventh floor, and it will give you a pass which will get printed out in front of you and out there. Okay, you want him to look like a human, we'll put a human face on that screen so that it looks like a human. Automation is in. IoT is a space I work in. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, married to AR, married to AI and IoT. That is the reality. So I coined a phrase many years ago, about 10 years ago, which I called so-mo-clo-litic IoT era. So is social media going to dominate your life? Mobile going to dominate your life? Clo, everything is on the cloud. Litic, analytics, big data, micro data, small data, plus IoT devices which are going to be helping you do everything. I mean, my office floor gets cleaned by an iRobo carpet cleaner. That's it. So one job gone of a person who used to come and use the vacuum cleaner around. Now this is left in the night, and in the morning there are four little fellows there. And four little fellows have finished their work and they've gone into the charging dock and they're charging themselves so that they can commence the work the next day. Hey guys, all this is the reality. So more prolific IoT, AR, AI, and you can go on and on. That's the new reality. Yep.
Thank you. You have spoken from your heart. But is there anything from your heart which will energize the new generation from 20 years to 23 years? Though no, the art is also for them. The job is there in the market, or entrepreneurship is there in the market. How to ignite their minds from Harish Viju, please.
Young people are the future of this country for sure. But young people who don't do things in a very, very brute manner of speaking. I mean, there was a period of time when everybody wanted to be a doctor, everybody wanted to be an engineer. And then comes a time when everybody wants to be a data scientist, everybody wants to be a computer engineer, etc., etc. Leave herd mentality aside. I think it's extremely important to really focus on what I've said about two skills. Two skills. You must have two skills. You must build two skills. You must invest in two skills. And I think, if you do that over a period of time, you'll suddenly find yourself insulated. No jolt will be a jolt in your life. And entrepreneurship at the end of the day is a beautiful thing. No government can give you all the jobs that you want. No company or no sets of companies can give you all the jobs that you want. Who can give you the jobs? I think you should become job creators. You should create 5 jobs for others. And I think that's the way to go. Earn for yourself, get well, and take care of at least 5 people for their entire lifetime by offering them jobs. And who knows, they or their children will do exactly what you're doing. India is a nation of entrepreneurs. India is a nation of shopkeepers. We have 14.6 million retail outlets in this country. 14.6 million retail outlets. That's a lot. So, if you really look at it, entrepreneurship also a great way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. So, see, within this short time, we could not understand whether Harish Bijur is a brand guru. Harish Bijur is a motivator. Harish Bijur is the last ray of hope. Or Harish Bijur is something what we are not able to understand. Anyway, let it be unexplored. More things to come from Harish Bijur in future in PRSI platform. So that is why we will not prolong our question answer session. And I will once again request our Secretary, Ms. Chitralekha Banerjee, to come back and to announce some exciting thing. Even we have not told Mr. Harish Bijur what is going to happen. Please come back, Chitralekha.
Hello. So today we have conducted a brand quiz and we got tremendous response. In fact, 6 of these winners they have scored 100 out of 100. Yes, and the winners are Jitendra Nath Mahato, Junaid Ahmed Khan, Kamal Hussain Raj, Syed Farooq Ahmed, Barsha Behud, and Zoya Sahib. So you can see your name on the ticker box also. You will all be receiving an e-certificate from us very soon. So, coming to thank you, dear audience. We are indeed overwhelmed by your participation in our webinars. We promise to come back with many sessions like this very soon. And thank you, Mr. Riju, for your electrifying deliberation. We remain grateful to you for your constant support towards the PR fraternity of India. You have always been with us, PRSI Kolkata chapter, and in fact, as you say, this is our third time we are hearing from you. We look forward to more. And with this, we end our today's session. Until next time, good night.
Good night. Thank you.